My sister slept with my boyfriend, got pregnant, and now my parents are after my inheritance, but they sure as hell didn't see what I was going to do next. I'm 24 now, but this whole train wreck started a couple of years ago. At the time, I was dating this guy I'd met in college. Let's call him James. We hit it off fast, he came across as thoughtful, kind, and we just clicked. We shared a lot of the same interests, and in the beginning, everything felt perfect. Honestly, I was totally smitten. I really believed he might be the one. So, after about a year together, I figured it was time he met my family. Now, my folks are, well, let's just say they've got some old school values. We come from a pretty conservative background where dating, relationships, and marriage are all taken seriously, and very specifically. So when James met them, the reception was lukewarm at best. They weren't outright rude, but I could sense the disapproval. It was all in the looks they gave me, like they were silently asking, "Are you sure about this guy?" I brushed it off, thinking they just needed time to warm up to him. What mattered to me more was that my sisters got along with him, and they really did. Mary, who was 22 at the time, and Emma, who was only 11, both took to him instantly. That made me happy, because like it or not, family opinions do matter. Especially Mary, she seemed to genuinely enjoy his company. We even used to joke around that she had a little crush on him, like she was trying to steal my boyfriend or something. Patricia adored him too, but she was just a kid, so it felt innocent enough. James and I didn't live together. Culturally, that just wasn't acceptable unless you were married. Plus, we were working in different cities, so we'd meet up on weekends or whenever we could. I thought everything between us was solid. I trusted him completely, why wouldn't I? He got along with the people I loved and never gave me a reason to doubt him. What could possibly go wrong, right? Well, it all started unraveling 3 months after I introduced him to my family. I was spending the weekend at his place. Nothing unusual, we got takeout, watched a movie, just a chill evening. Then he hopped in the shower, and his phone started going off. Now, I'm not the type to go digging through someone's phone. I believe if you trust someone, you shouldn't need to check. But that night, something just felt off. His phone kept buzzing nonstop. I couldn't explain it, but something in my gut told me to look. Maybe I already knew something wasn't right, deep down. So I picked it up. And when I unlocked it, I saw a message from Mary. At first, I didn't think anything of it. She's my sister, after all. But then I opened the conversation, and my heart dropped. The messages weren't casual. They were flirty. Not just playful flirty, either, let's hook up level stuff. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I started scrolling through their texts, and it just kept getting worse. Late-night chats, private jokes I'd never heard before, and even plans to meet up behind my back. It had been going on for months. I felt sick to my stomach. This was my boyfriend. And my sister. I took screenshots of everything. My hands were shaking, but I knew I needed to have proof. I sent them to myself, then grabbed my things and left without saying a word. I didn't wait for him to come out of the shower. I didn't give him a chance to lie to my face. I just walked out. As soon as I got back to my place, my phone lit up with texts and calls from James. He must have figured something was wrong the moment he saw I was gone. I ignored every single one. Just looking at my phone made me want to scream. Later that night, I dropped the screenshots in our group chat, the one with our mutual friends, and then I blocked him. I didn't care about the fallout. I was done. No more lies. No more pretending. But honestly, the worst part wasn't James. It was Mary. Yeah, his betrayal stung, but Mary? That was a whole different kind of pain. She wasn't just my sister, we were best friends growing up. Practically inseparable. Our parents were pretty checked out most of the time, so Mary and I always leaned on each other. We were only 2 years apart and had been through everything together, or so I thought. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I threw a few things in a bag and caught a flight home. I didn't care about causing a scene. At that point, this wasn't just a fight, it felt like my entire world had shattered. When I walked into my parents' house, there was Mary, sitting at the kitchen table scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. I slammed the printed screenshots right in front of her. Both of our parents were in the room. She didn't even try to deny it. Just looked at them and gave a lazy shrug. She said, "Yeah, I did it." So what? I wanted to lose it. How could she be so cold? So shameless? Like what she did meant nothing. That's when my mom snapped, actually slapped her across the face. I'd never seen her do anything like that. My dad was fuming too, yelling at Mary, telling her to get out of the house. He gave her 1 week to move out. I thought that was it. I figured the drama was finally over. But 2 days later, Mary dropped another bomb. She was pregnant. With James's baby. I was stunned. This whole thing had gone from betrayal to full-blown disaster in just a matter of days. And here's the kicker, my parents, who were furious just days earlier, suddenly flipped. As soon as they found out she was pregnant, all that anger disappeared. They couldn't stay mad at her. And just like that, everything shifted. The same people who had thrown her out were now treating her like the victim, like she was the one who needed protection. It was like the pregnancy wiped the slate clean for her. After Mary dropped the pregnancy bomb, my parents did a complete 180. Suddenly, they were all about standing by family and supporting her no matter what. That's when I finally snapped. I laid into them. Told them exactly how I felt, that they were enabling her selfish behavior and acting like everything she did was just fine. I couldn't believe how quickly they forgot what she had done to me. They tried to calm me down, told me I was overreacting, but I wasn't having it. I grabbed my bag, looked them dead in the eye, and told them never to contact me again. I was done. The only one I didn't cut off was Emma. She was just a kid, and none of this was her fault. I wasn't about to punish her for what the rest of them had done. Then, about 2 weeks later, out of nowhere, my mom managed to get a new number and texted me. It was a wedding invitation, for James and Mary. I couldn't believe the audacity. And to make it worse, she acted like I should just show up for the sake of family unity. Like nothing had happened. I told her to lose my number and blocked her again. And that's where things really kicked off. After cutting ties with Mary, my ex, and my parents, I honestly thought the worst was behind me. I figured the silence would bring peace. I tried focusing on moving forward, just talking to Patricia now and then and keeping my circle small. But, of course, nothing's ever that simple when you've got a family like mine. About 2 months after going no contact, word started trickling in through my cousin, the one I stayed in touch with. She casually mentioned that Mary was having a baby shower, and guess who was throwing it? Yep, my parents. They were going all out too, inviting tons of people, making it this big celebration like Mary was some kind of miracle worker. I wasn't even shocked at that point. Honestly, it was exactly the kind of stunt I expected from them. But then my cousin told me something that really set me off. Apparently, my parents had been telling everyone that I was the one who abandoned the family. That Mary was actually the good daughter, the one trying to hold everyone together. Can you believe that? After everything she did, hooking up with my boyfriend, getting pregnant, lying about it, they had the nerve to paint her as the victim. I wanted to pick up the phone and rip into my mom, but I held back. I knew getting sucked back into that toxic mess would only make things worse. So, I stayed quiet. Kept to myself. But inside, I was livid. The way they twisted the truth to save face, it was disgusting. A few days later, I got a message from Emma. She just wanted to say hi and let me know what was going on at home. But then she casually mentioned that Mom had been going around telling people I needed to hurry up and get married. Why? Not because she cared about me, but because she didn't want folks gossiping about how the younger sister, Mary, was married and having a kid before me. I hadn't even spoken to my mom in months, and she was still out there managing my social calendar like it was her job. It was ridiculous. But that's always been my mom's thing, image over everything. She didn't care that Mary betrayed me. The bigger crisis, to her, was how it all looked. I wasn't living life on her ideal timeline, and somehow that became a scandal. It made me angry, sure. But more than that, it broke my heart. It was like nothing I ever did was enough for them. Even when I walked away to protect my peace, they found a way to rewrite the story, cast me as the villain, and keep pretending everything was fine. Eventually, Mary's wedding came and went. Of course, I didn't go. But my cousin filled me in afterward. Apparently, it was some extravagant affair. My parents spared no expense, even though Mary was just a few months along, they dressed it up as a responsible, honorable decision. You know, get married quick so the baby wouldn't be born out of wedlock. Gotta love the hypocrisy. My cousin also told me my parents had been telling guests I couldn't make it because of work. Work. As if I'd miss my sister's wedding, pregnant with my ex's baby, because I had a meeting. Unreal. But what really got me wasn't the lies. It was that they were still trying to sell this picture-perfect fantasy. Like none of it ever happened. Like they could just sweep it all under the rug and play happy family. They weren't even pretending for me anymore. They were pretending for everyone else. And honestly, that hurt. As much as I'd tried to move on, hearing about it still stung. It felt like they'd just cut me out completely. Like I never mattered. So I focused on rebuilding. I dove into work, kept my head down, and tried to put the past behind me. For a little while, things were quiet. No texts. No drama. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally let it go. But, of course, in my family, peace never lasts. One night, just as I was getting ready for bed, my phone rang. It was Emma. Something about that call just felt off. I picked up, and right away I could hear her crying. She was barely able to talk, but after a few minutes, she told me what had happened. Our dad had passed away. I was in shock. I mean, yeah, we weren't close. But he was still my father. The real gut punch, though? It was Patricia who had to break the news to me. Not my mom. Not a call. Not even a text. Patricia told me Dad had been sick for a while. My mom knew. And she decided not to tell me. She thought it would stress me out. Can you believe that? My own father was dying, and they didn't even think I deserved to know. The very next morning, I booked a flight home. I didn't care about the drama anymore, I just wanted to be there for Emma. But when I walked into my parents' house, it felt like stepping onto a battlefield. My mom and Mary were both there, and the second they saw me, they went off. No hello. No glad you came. They accused me of only showing up for the inheritance, like the only reason I'd come home was for money. Mary didn't hold back, she went straight for the jugular. She called me selfish, accused me of abandoning the family when they needed me the most. It was like I wasn't even allowed to feel anything. I didn't get a moment to grieve. Everyone was too busy fighting over who was getting what, like my dad's death was just some legal transaction. It made me sick. Then came the reading of the will, and that's when the real storm hit. To everyone's surprise, especially mine, my dad had left me the biggest portion of his estate. I couldn't believe it. After everything that had happened, I wasn't expecting a single cent from him. But there it was, in black and white. I got 40%, Patricia got 30%, my mom got 20%, and Mary got 10%. Now, you'd think that would feel like some kind of justice, right? Like a bit of validation after all the crap I'd been put through. But honestly, it just made things 10 times worse. Mary and her husband exploded. They were furious, ranting that I didn't deserve a dime, that Mary needed the money more because of her kid. They even had the audacity to say I should hand over my share to help the family. When I didn't back down, they started throwing around legal threats. Said they'd take me to court if I didn't do the right thing. I knew they didn't have a legal leg to stand on, but the fact they were willing to go to that extreme just proved what it was really about: greed. None of this was about family. It was about money. Always had been. I told them flat out I wasn't giving up anything. That's when things got ugly. Mary's husband started making veiled threats, talking about how I'd regret it if I didn't cooperate. I didn't take him seriously at first, but it still sent a chill down my spine. I was already mourning my dad, and now I had to worry about this crap too? After the will reading, I went back to my hotel to breathe and collect my thoughts. I sat there thinking about everything: James, Mary, my parents, all the betrayal, the lies, the greed. And that's when it really hit me. I wasn't going to let them bully me anymore. I'd spent too many years letting my family dictate how I lived. That stopped now. I was finally going to take back control. So after the whole inheritance meltdown, I figured things couldn't possibly get worse. Mary and her husband were still trying to pressure me, but I stood my ground. I had every legal right to what my dad left me. And after all they'd done, there was no way in hell I was giving up my share. A few days later, I got a call from my lawyer. We had another meeting set up to finalize some estate stuff, and honestly, I just wanted to get it over with. I was exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. But when I showed up at the office, the lawyer surprised me with something I wasn't expecting: a letter. My dad had written it before he passed and asked that it be given to me when the time was right. I just sat there, staring at the envelope. I didn't even know if I wanted to read it. My feelings about him were complicated. Sure, he left me the biggest share in the will, but he also stood by in silence when Mary and my mom turned against me. He didn't protect me. He didn't say a word. Still, I missed him. Eventually, I opened it. It wasn't long, just a couple short paragraphs, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. He apologized. Said he knew he failed me, that he should have done more, should have stood up for me. He admitted he was scared and felt trapped between my mom and Mary. He said he regretted how things ended between us. Reading that, I didn't know what to feel. A part of me wanted to cry. Another part just felt angry. Why wait until now? Why not say any of this while he was still here? After that, we wrapped up the estate stuff, but I was barely paying attention. My head was spinning. I kept wondering how things might have been different if he had just spoken up sooner. Maybe all this chaos could have been avoided. But it was too late for what-ifs. On the way back to the hotel, my phone rang. It was Emma. She was upset. Mary had been spreading lies about me around town. Telling people I was trying to steal the inheritance, that I was turning the family against her. Classic Mary. She's always been good at flipping the story and making herself look like the victim. Still, it stung. No matter how many times I reminded myself not to care, hearing that she was poisoning people against me, it hurt. So that night, I picked Patricia up and took her out to dinner. I just wanted one quiet evening with someone who didn't make me feel like the bad guy. We talked through everything: what had happened, how I was feeling, how she was feeling. I reminded her none of this was her fault. She was just a kid caught in the crossfire, and I hated that she had to live in that mess. But peace doesn't last long in my world. The next morning, I woke up to a bunch of missed calls and texts, from numbers I didn't recognize. At first, I thought it was spam, but then I started reading the messages. And that's when I realized, these weren't random. They were threatening. Angry. Full of name-calling and accusations, saying I was destroying the family, saying I'd pay if I didn't back off. It was terrifying. I didn't know who sent them, but I had a pretty good guess. Mary's husband had already threatened me once. This felt like his style. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and flagged the messages, just in case things escalated. But I won't lie, my nerves were shot. Family drama is one thing. But when people start crossing lines and sending threats, that's a whole different beast. Then, that afternoon, I went out to my car, and all 4 tires had been slashed. That's when I knew. This wasn't just angry words anymore, someone was trying to scare me. Maybe even hurt me. I stood there, staring at the damage, heart pounding. Who does that? I knew Mary and her husband were furious, but this? This was over the line. Way over. They were showing me they'd stop at nothing to get what they wanted. I ended up calling the cops and filing a report about the slashed tires, but I wasn't holding my breath that they'd catch whoever did it. Still, I wasn't about to let them scare me into hiding. I had enough to deal with already, living in fear wasn't an option. I talked to the hotel staff, and they were great about it. They bumped up security around the place, started doing more patrols, and that helped me feel a little safer. But even with that, I knew this situation was far from over. A few days later, we had another meeting with the estate lawyer to finalize some paperwork. Mary and her husband were there, and man, the tension in that room could have cut glass. Nobody said much, but the way they were glaring at me? Yeah, no words were needed. After the meeting, Mary's husband pulled me aside. He got real close and told me flat out that I was making a huge mistake by not giving up my share. He said I'd regret it, and that this wasn't over. I didn't even give him the satisfaction of a response. I just turned and walked away. But in the back of my mind, I knew this wasn't the end of it. Mary and her husband weren't going to stop until they got what they wanted. And I had to be ready for whatever stunt they pulled next. That night, I sat alone in my hotel room, replaying everything that had happened since my dad died. The betrayal. The threats. The vandalism. It was all just exhausting. All I wanted was to move forward with my life and leave this mess behind. But with Mary and her husband circling like vultures, I knew that wasn't gonna happen anytime soon. Still, I wasn't backing down. I'd fought too hard to get to this point, and I wasn't about to let them steamroll me now. They could threaten me all day long, but I wasn't going anywhere. This was my life. My inheritance. And if they thought they could bully me into giving it up, they were in for one hell of a rude awakening. Things didn't cool off after that last lawyer meeting. If anything, they escalated. Mary and her husband were getting more desperate by the day, and it honestly felt like I was stuck in some low-budget crime drama. The anonymous threats kept rolling in, text after text, and I was mentally worn down. About a week after the whole tire-slashing incident, Patricia and I were walking back into the hotel after grabbing dinner. She'd been staying with me for a few days, which helped more than I can explain. Just having her around, someone who actually cared, was a breath of fresh air. As we stepped through the lobby, I noticed this guy loitering by the elevators, just standing there watching us. At first, I thought maybe he was waiting for someone, but the way he tracked us with his eyes? It was off. Real off. We walked past him, trying to act normal, but he turned and started following us. I didn't want to panic, but my gut was screaming. When we got into the elevator, I turned to Emma. "Did you see that guy?" She nodded, looking nervous. Yeah, he was staring at us. Back in the room, I called the front desk right away and told them what happened. They said they'd check the cameras and have someone do a sweep of the floor, which was reassuring, but it didn't ease my nerves. Everything was starting to feel way too real. My gut told me Mary's husband was behind it. Who else would go to these lengths just to scare me? That night, I barely slept. Every creak and thump outside had me wide awake, convinced someone was about to break in. It was like being trapped in a nightmare, and all I could think was, how the hell do I make this stop? The next morning, I'd had enough. I called my lawyer and laid it all out, every threat, the guy in the lobby, the slashed tires, all of it. He agreed it had gone too far and recommended we file for a restraining order against Mary's husband. It wasn't something I ever wanted to do. But at that point, it felt like the only way to protect myself. We filed the paperwork the next day, and I did my best to keep a low profile while waiting for the court date. But, of course, Mary and her husband didn't take the news well. The texts started flooding in again, more threats, more manipulation. Messages like, "You'll regret this," and we'll make sure you pay for what you've done. I was tired. Bone deep tired. But I was done playing scared. Then came the day of the court hearing. I showed up with my lawyer, trying to keep it together. And of course, Mary and her husband were there too, acting smug as hell, like this was all some big joke to them. I didn't look at them. I stayed focused, listened to my lawyer, and waited for our turn. When we got up in front of the judge, Mary's husband flipped the whole script. He tried to act like I was the one stirring up drama. Said I was bitter about the inheritance and was making up lies to ruin his life. I couldn't believe it. The guy vandalizes my car, sends threats, creeps around hotels, and somehow, I'm the villain? Thankfully, the judge wasn't buying it. They listened to everything, my lawyer's case, the messages, the timeline, and saw through his nonsense. They granted the restraining order. And for the first time in weeks, I actually felt a sliver of relief. No, it didn't magically fix everything. The threats didn't stop overnight, and I still felt like I had to glance over my shoulder everywhere I went. But I had something now, something official. And that gave me just enough peace of mind to breathe again. A few weeks passed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, things seemed to be calming down. I was still living out of a hotel room, but I'd started looking for a real apartment, something that felt safe, somewhere I could actually breathe. Patricia had gone back home, and even though I missed her like hell, we were still in touch every day. She was still dealing with the ripple effects of all the family drama, but at least she wasn't in the dead center of it like I was. Then one morning, I woke up to a text from an unknown number. No threats this time, just a link. I hesitated, instinct telling me not to open it, but curiosity got the better of me. And as soon as I clicked, my stomach dropped. Somebody had made an entire website dedicated to trashing me. I mean, full-blown smear campaign. Page after page of twisted stories, lies mixed with just enough half-truths to make it seem believable. There were even pictures of me from the funeral, with captions making it look like I was some cold-hearted monster. I couldn't believe it. I called my lawyer immediately and sent him the link. He told me to take screenshots of everything before anything could be deleted, and then we started the process of getting the site taken down. It was just more proof that Mary and her husband weren't done. Not by a long shot. By that point, I was so emotionally drained, I didn't even have the energy to get mad. I just wanted it to be over. I wanted my life back. Later that night, I talked to Emma. She was pissed about the website and wanted to help somehow, but there wasn't much she could do. I told her I appreciated her, but the last thing I wanted was for her to get dragged in any deeper than she already was. We talked for a while. She told me Mary had been acting like everything was fine, laughing at family dinners, posting selfies like she hadn't thrown our entire lives into chaos. That was classic Mary. Always the victim. Always the center of the story. I went to bed that night exhausted, but with at least some sort of plan in place. We were getting the site taken down. I had the restraining order in effect. I wasn't completely alone, even when it felt like I was. And sure enough, the next morning I got an email from my lawyer saying the site was officially down. Finally, a small win. It didn't fix everything, but it was something. It reminded me that I wasn't powerless in this fight. Not anymore. As I sat there in my hotel room that morning, drinking my coffee and trying to process everything that had happened, something clicked. I wasn't scared anymore. I was still angry, hell, of course I was, but the constant fear? The tension that had been sitting in my chest for weeks? It had started to fade. I wasn't going to let them control me anymore. They could come at me with everything they had, I was still going to stand my ground. So here we are, in what I thought was the final stretch. After the court hearing and getting that restraining order, I figured maybe the worst was behind me. But yeah, that was wishful thinking. I knew Mary and her husband weren't going to back off, but even I didn't expect what came next. It was about 2 weeks after the court date. I was starting to let my guard down a little, starting to believe I could breathe again. I'd even gone to see a couple apartments, trying to picture what my life might look like without all this chaos. Then one morning, I got a package delivered to the hotel. No return address. Should have been a red flag, but I didn't think much of it at first. I opened it up and found this old, beat-up notebook inside. At first, I thought it was just some junk someone mailed by mistake. But then I flipped it open, and my blood ran cold. It was filled, cover to cover, with notes about me. Handwritten. Page after page of obsessive, almost manic scribbles about my life, my family, my dad's will. It had dates, times, places I'd been, people I'd seen. Even stuff about where Patricia and I had gone together. Someone had been watching me. 4 weeks. Maybe longer. I called my lawyer right away, sent him photos of the notebook. He was as freaked out as I was and told me to go straight to the police. I filed a report, handed over the notebook, but truthfully, I wasn't expecting much. The cops had bigger problems to deal with, and this wasn't exactly a priority. After that, I basically went into lockdown. I stayed in my room, only left when I absolutely had to. Patricia called every day, she was worried sick, and she didn't have a clue who could be behind it, but like me, her gut pointed to Mary's husband. Then one night, everything got even weirder. I was heading back to my room after picking up some food when I saw him. That same guy from the hotel lobby weeks ago, the one who'd been watching Patricia and me, he was back. Standing by the elevators, pretending to scroll on his phone, but it was obvious. He was watching me. Just like before. My heart started racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. I walked past him like I didn't notice, but every nerve in my body was on high alert. Once I got to my room, I locked the door and called hotel security right away. They said they'd check the security footage and send someone up to patrol the floor again, but at that point, I was done pretending the hotel was safe. It didn't matter how many cameras or locks there were, if someone wanted to get to me, they'd find a way. I was tired of feeling hunted. I was tired of wondering when the next attack was coming. And more than anything, I was tired of living in fear over a battle I never asked to fight. That night, I called Patricia and told her everything. Every detail, the guy in the lobby, the notebook, how unsafe I felt. She was scared, and hearing the worry in her voice made it all hit harder. I hated that she had to be dragged into this mess, that she was dealing with the fallout of Mary's choices just like I was. I promised her I'd be careful. We made a plan to meet the next day so we could talk face to face and figure out what to do next. The following afternoon, I met her at a little cafe downtown, somewhere neutral and far from the hotel. We sat there for a couple of hours just talking through everything. Patricia told me more about what had been going on at home. Mary was apparently walking around like nothing ever happened, acting like she hadn't dragged me through hell and tried to take me to court over Dad's will. Infuriating? Yeah. But not surprising. Mary had always been the queen of denial and playing the victim. Then Patricia dropped something that made my stomach twist. She said Mary's husband had been asking people if they knew where I was staying. He'd been poking around, trying to get information. And just like that, everything clicked, the guy in the lobby, the notebook, the weird feeling that someone had been watching me. It wasn't just paranoia. They really had been tracking me. I couldn't stay at the hotel any longer. It wasn't safe, and if Mary's husband had eyes on me, it was only a matter of time before something worse happened. That night, I packed up everything I had and checked out without a word. I didn't even tell Patricia where I was going, just in case. I didn't want her caught in the crossfire. I booked a room at another hotel, way across town. Somewhere quiet, out of the way, where no one would think to look. The next few days were silent. No texts, no calls, no sketchy packages. It felt strange, like the eye of a storm, but I wasn't letting my guard down. Not this time. Then out of nowhere, my lawyer called. He said Mary's husband had been arrested. I froze. I didn't even know how to react. Apparently, he got caught trying to break into my old hotel room. No one knew what he was planning to do, but whatever it was, he didn't get the chance. The police were already watching him. Part of me was relieved, finally, but the other part was furious. That it had gone this far, that he had actually tried to take it to that level, over money. Over an inheritance. It was insane. The cops told me I'd probably have to testify, and I was fine with that. If it meant keeping him behind bars, I'd stand in that courtroom and tell the whole damn story. At least now, I felt safe, at least for a little while. Things started to settle down after that. The police kept me in the loop, and my lawyer was confident Mary's husband wouldn't be pulling any more stunts anytime soon, not with the charges he was facing. A few weeks later, I moved into a new apartment. A place no one in my family knew about, not even Emma. I trusted her, of course, but the fewer people who knew, the better. I wasn't about to take any more chances. It's been a few months now. And while I'd love to say things are back to normal, they're not. Not really. There's still this part of me that stays on edge. Always watching. Always wondering if Mary or someone tied to her is going to pop back into my life with more chaos. But for now, I'm focused on moving forward. On rebuilding. On healing from everything they tried to destroy. When I look back at it all, it's hard to believe how far this went. It started with Mary stabbing me in the back and sleeping with my boyfriend. And somehow, it spiraled into threats, vandalism, restraining orders, and now a criminal case. But if there's one thing I've learned through it all, it's this. I'm tougher than I ever gave myself credit for. And from here on out, I'm never letting anyone take advantage of me again.